Welcome back to day 85 of the DSR channel, and I want to go over the healer role. This was one I've been excited about since the beginning because it's got some interesting, unique nuances to it that are very important for how it executes. And real quick, I'm at 1,234 subscribers. My goal for this week with the new book is 2,000. So I'd really appreciate the help. And I know that two-thirds of the people watching are not subscribed, and I know it's kind of a pain, and you don't always remember. I mean, I watched Treant Monk and Dungeon Dudes for a long time before I subscribed, just because that was the first time I ever started watching YouTube. So I get it, but I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to subscribe. That does help a lot in so many ways. So, and especially a big thank you to all of you who've been with me since the beginning. Thank you very much. 85 days ago, you joined and been sticking with me since. Took a bet on total random. All right, and here is the table describing all 10 roles briefly. The healer specifically is the one that's restoring hit points and removing debuffs from allies. They're a little bit different in the second column, or the fifth column, fourth column, where they don't want to just stay as far from melee as possible, but they need to stay near enough that they're still be able to heal and take care of their allies, okay? But yes, they still want to totally avoid targeting. And the last column, big reminder, this is the stereotypical example of that kind of a role. This is not the only way to do it, and if you play that class, you don't have to be in this role, okay? This is just a stereotypic example to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. And the stereotype for healer is the Bard, Cleric, and Druid. Now, that being said, the Bard, Cleric, and Druid are the only A-ranked healers for a base class. All right, here's my ranking chart for every class on all 10 roles in Tier 1. So this is specifically level 4, and there's no subclasses involved, no backgrounds, no species, no feats, okay? And the spells are involved, but only the spells you get from your base class, okay? And there's no multi-classing. All right, so keep that in mind as you're looking at this. This is not your maximum potential. This is just your starting point when you're building a character. So the point of like this video would be if you're wanting to say, I want to play a healer, but you haven't yet decided on your class, you could look down this chart and say, well, here's my starting points. What could I build onto this to make my healer? Okay. As you can see, Bard, Cleric, and Druid are the only A-ranked ones at level 4. So I'm going to cover those in a little more detail, but as always, with a little multi-classing, adding in feats, adding in subclasses, you can pretty much turn any class into an A rank at anything. Almost. it's a stretch with some of them, but you can anything that's already got like a C in something, then you could. It's very likely with some multi-classing and feats, you could turn that into an A. Okay. All right. So your primary function is to restore hit points and remove debuffs, or as the way I like to think about it, you are trying to restore allies to full functionality, right? That's restoring hit points, that's removing negative debuffs, that's removing negative conditions so that they are restored to full function, okay? If you start talking about buffing allies so that they are more performant or better than their standard state, then that's a support function. You are buffing them. And so I put temporary hit points under support because that's buffing them with more hit points than they would otherwise have. And healing is a healing function. Now, often, not always, if the class or the way you've built your character, it's probably capable of being a good healer, then it's also probably capable of being good support, right? They tend to put those functions together in that they give options for both of those to same things, right? Now that's not 100% true, right? The sorcerer and wizard both have a lot of support spells and almost no healing capability, okay? And healing is specifically healing other people, not healing yourself. I categorize healing only yourself, like the feature you have can only heal you. That's survival, okay? You have to be able to use it to heal others for it to count as a healing function, okay? And as we saw, right, in Critical Role, where Laura Bailey played Jester in season 2, she's a cleric, but she was not a healer, okay? That's very important, right? Just because you're playing a cleric, druid, or bard does not mean you have to play a healer or a support role. So keep that in mind. The one thing you have to do if you're not going to play one of those as a healer or support is you need to tell the rest of the party, right? Before session 1, right? So during session 0 or however that, when everybody's making their characters, tell everybody then, hey, I'm going to play a cleric, but it's going to be a frontliner, not a healer. Or it's going to be a scout type function, skirmisher, not a healer, right? Make sure everybody knows. because the stereotype for those are so strong that everybody, if you just say cleric, druid, or bard is your class, they're going to assume that you're going to be a healer and a support. And you don't have to play that way, okay? But you do have to tell them, all right, so that they can accommodate that, right? Whether they change their character build or they just use different tactics, right? It's okay to not have a healer in the party. You don't have to have a healer. So just make sure you tell everybody. The other thing that's important to bring up before session 1 when you're making your characters is, and to think about, is that the healer role, there's a few of these roles, of these 10 roles, that are really devalued by having redundancy, right? And that's the tank, the healer, and the support. Having one of those is great in a party. Having 2 of those really gets a lot less valuable, right? Now, it's fine to have like a backup healer, but if you have 2 main healers, well, a lot of the time people don't need healing, especially in round 1, they don't need healing. So you make sure you can do other things, right? Now, it's not disallowed. Just keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of times where your healing isn't needed because the other healer got there first or did the thing, and both of you are just healing half as often as you would have if there was just one of you. So make sure you've got damage options or control options or other options that are going to be fun to do, okay? All right. So these are the spells, right? And the interesting thing about the healer role is that there's like, even though there's like 1,000+ spells in the game, there are like 20 spells that are healing function spells, okay? That's a spell that regains lost hit points or removes a negative condition. Like there's like 20. And even with the new expansions, they didn't add very many healing spells. They added like 2, and they were not very good healing spells. And this is it, right? There's a few other healing spells. I've got some honorable mentions, but this is basically the list of the actual healing spells you want to be thinking about and considering. And there's categories of these, right? So you don't necessarily want to take every spell in a category. You want to make sure you have at least one in each category. So big single target heal spells, right? You got Cure Wounds, Heal, and Power Word Heal. I would probably always keep Cure Wounds on my spell list and then either take Power Word Heal or Heal, right? Bonus action Heal. You've got Healing Word. I've got an honorable mention for Mass Healing Word, but that one is not very good. I would just keep Healing Word all the time. Then you got your multi-target heals. So you got Aid, Mass Cure Wounds, and Mass Heal. You might still keep Aid, even though you get access to Mass Cure Wounds at some point, just because Aid also has a support function of raising their maximum hit points. So you might keep it anyway. Out of combat healing, you got Good Berry and Prayer of Healing. Both of those are really only good for out of combat, right? Prayer of Healing is a 10-minute cast. Good Berry is a 1-action cast, but it takes 1 action each berry, and each berry only heals 1 hit point. So you do not want to be casting that in combat. The ideal way to use Good Berry is at the end of the previous day, with whatever spell slots you have left, you cast Good Berry, and then use those for the next 24 hours with all your spell slots restored. Then you've got your concentration healing spells, Healing Spirit, Aura Vitality, Conjure Celestial. These are the ones you can concentrate on. They can be used during combat. You might want to, especially if it's like your allies are just taking so much damage that your Cure Wounds or whatever you're throwing out as your action just isn't enough to keep up. Then you might want a concentration spell that you can be using to heal people plus an action heal spell every turn, okay? Healing Spirit is greatly outclassed by Aura Vitality when cast at low levels, but at a certain point, when you're casting it at like level 5 or higher, Healing Spirit actually starts to heal more than Aura Vitality. And more importantly, Healing Spirit heals faster than Aura Vitality. I'll get into that more with the Druid. And then you got your remove negative condition spells, right? Heroism, yes, suppresses the frightened condition if they already have it when you cast it. There's a sage advice on that, clarifying if you don't believe me. They explicitly spell out that heroism, when it makes you immune to the effects of frightened, when it makes you immune to the frightened condition, it is also makes you immune to the effects of the frightened condition, which means it basically suppresses all the functions of the frightened condition. So heroism, yes, does suppress the frightened condition. Calm emotions, though, is better. It suppresses both charmed and frightened. So if you get access to calm emotions, I would probably remove heroism from my prepared spell list. Then you got lesser restoration, got to have it. Actually, I'm going to cover a lot more of these in the next slide, so I'm going to skip that. But that's it, the category there, and you probably need most of these. Unfortunately, not necessarily all of these in the remove negative conditions category. And then you've got your raise dead, right? Raise from dead, which is the most important condition removed from your allies, the dead condition. So you got revivify, which is your level 3 raise. Then you got raise dead and reincarnate. Those are the ones you want to be looking at. Make sure you have probably, if you can, revivify plus raise dead or revivify plus reincarnate. All right, so and here I try to make this a little easier. So if you have access to the green version of the spell, then you probably don't want to take the red version, is what I would recommend. So for example, Power Word Heal and Mass Heal are both 9th level spells. Um, Mass Heal heals 700 hit points. Power Word Heal just maxes out one character, right? It doesn't matter how many hit points they have; they're just max now. And some, of your, very tanky frontliner type builds can have like 450 hit points in tier 4. So Power Word Heal might be the way you want to go, but Mass Heal will still bring that character to full and then give you 300, 350 or more hit points you can be distributing amongst the other players. So Mass Heal is probably better. It doesn't restore as many conditions as Power Word Heal. But since you only have one 9th level spell slot, it just doesn't make sense to prepare both of them. I would probably just get Mass Heal and use that. And then Heroism versus Calm Emotions. Heroism suppresses the Frightened condition. Calm Emotion suppresses both Frightened and Charmed and will affect more targets. In fact, it can affect all of your allies and all of the enemies. And if you make them all indifferent, then you can just end combat, right? They're all indifferent now and don't care. So if you can get Heroism at first and second level, I would take it. But once you get access to Calm Emotions, I would remove Heroism from my prepared spell list just because you don't have that much room, okay? And then the honorable mention spells. You got Life Transference, which used to be a pretty good single target big heal. It would heal 2 times 48 hit points. And I'm just going to say that's 8d8 just to make the comparison easier. So at level 3, it's going to heal 8d8 hit points. Now, if you, with a buff to Cure Wounds, if you just cast that at 3rd level, it's going to heal 68 plus your spellcasting modifier, which is probably a 4 at level 5 once you get access to 3rd level spells, which is going to be very close to the same amount healed from Life Transference. And Life Transference does half the damage to you. So you take half the damage and then heal that person, the full amount. So Cure Wounds will do almost as much healing and no damage to you. So it's a lot better. The other upside of Life Transference is it's a ranged heal, 30-foot range. I don't think that outweighs it, and I probably still wouldn't take it as a cleric, right? Only clerics and wizards have access to Life Transference. So if you're a wizard, it's maybe not a bad spell to have on your spell list, just in case, right? Like the cleric, the healer, the only healer you have in the party goes down, they're at 0 and dying, you can Life Transference to bring them back up. So if you're the wizard, you maybe should take that in that kind of a party composition. Then you got Regenerate. Which is it will heal 633 hit points for the hour duration. So I'm going to talk about that one more when we get to the Druid. Then you got Symbols Synostodomer. I don't know how to. That one's a strange one, also level 7, and it's available to wizards and sorcerers. So if it's a kind of a scenario where you want to use your 7th level spell slot to put a big healing, self-healing buff on another party member, which could be you, I guess, then Symbols might be the way to go, right? But that does not turn you into a healer at all. And Symbols also, Synostodomer, also doesn't do anything if they don't have spell slots. They have to have spell slots and be casting spells, and then that lets them expend their hit point dice when they cast a spell to heal themselves. So it's kind of like giving somebody else the ability to cast Arcane Vigor on themselves, but no action economy required. So I don't know. It's a strange spell. Then I mentioned before, Mass Healing Word. Unfortunately, they didn't really buff the scaling on that, right? They buffed it a little bit. So the base healing went from 1d4 plus your spellcasting modifier to 2d4 plus your spellcasting modifier, but the upcasting is still 1d4. So if you cast Healing Word at 3rd level, it's going to heal 64 plus your spellcasting modifier. Whereas this was going to heal 2d4 plus your spellcasting modifier, but it's 6 targets. So it's not very often that you have a bunch of people in the party who need a tiny bit of healing, right? If the whole party is like down and you're the only one left and you need to bring them all back up, yes, that would do it. I would probably use Aid, which will heal more. Because if you cast Aid at 3rd level, that's going to give you 10 points of healing for each target. I don't know. There's just not very many scenarios in which Mass Healing Word is the best way to go. And yes, there is some scenarios, right? Like you've got 6 people in the party, 5 of them are down, and you guys are desperate. You need to bring everyone back up. Mass Healing Word would do it better than Aid because Aid only hits 3 targets. But the number of times that's going to be the situation is just very rare. And for very rare, niche situations, it's not worth preparing yet another spell on your spell list. I would diversify my spell list before taking this, right? You're already going to take like 11 healing spells. I would not take another preparation slot for this spell. Get a control spell, get a damage spell, get a blaster spell, get something else. support spell. Then you got another out of combat heal, which is Catnap, which is only available to like wizards and sorcerers, I think. Bards and wizards, actually, I think. That one's like Prayer of Healing in that it gives you a 10-minute short rest. It only affects 3 targets, and they don't get any other benefits, right? Prayer of Healing affects 5 targets, and they get a 2d8 plus your spellcasting modifier and healing plus a short rest. So Prayer of Healing is better in every way. All right, concentration heals. There's the Aura of Life. That's technically a heal spell, but it only heals if they're at 0 hit points, and it only takes them to 1 hit point. Now they auto heal at the start of their turn, which means they get their full turn. I don't know. That has definitely a niche. I do think it's pretty niche. To be in a scenario where you think like I don't know, you'd want to use it when you're in a scenario where you think your party members are just going to be going down so much that you just can't possibly keep them all up with all of your spell casting, using your action economy. So you use this, and then they're always going to go back to 1 hit point at the start of their turn, right? So they're never going to be making death saves. There is a situation for that. It's very niche. I probably wouldn't prepare this. I would probably get other spells that would help me keep the party from going to 0 hit points. A control spell or a support spell. All right. And you got the other 2 honorable mentions, Raise from Dead, Resurrection and True Resurrection. So if you get the Raise Dead spell, that will raise anybody from the previous 10 days who died within the last 10 days, right? Revivify is only the last 1 minute. So sometimes you might miss that 1 minute window and you can't res your ally because they've been dead longer than 1 minute. But 10 minutes should cover it. It's not very often that you need Resurrection, which will go back 1 year, or True Resurrection, which will go back 100 years. Those are more like plot devices, usually, where there's some NPC who's been dead and you need them back for information or something, and you need to bring them back. And that's usually what Resurrection and True Resurrection would be. I wouldn't prepare them in general. And when you run into that scenario, right, 1 more day to just swap out your prepared spells isn't going to make a difference to the person who's been dead 100 years. So you just take 1 more day, you prepare Resurrection and True Resurrection. By the way, those cost a lot of money. So you might have to spend some time gathering the money before you can even cast the spell. So, they're really plot devices. Here's a table of every condition, negative condition removing and negative effect removing healing spell in the game. And here is the conditions it removes. Okay, so you got a handy chart. You can see there's only 3 spells that will remove the charm condition, and it's Calm Emotions, Greater Restoration, and Power Word Heal. Or I'm going to say remove or suppress that condition. And then with Frightened, there's only 3 spells that will suppress or remove it. That's Heroism, Calm Emotions, and again, Power Word Heal. So Power Word Heal heals some interesting conditions. Then you got Lesser Restoration, which, like I said, is blind, removes the blinded condition, the deafened condition, the paralyzed condition, and the poison condition. I would keep Lesser Restoration on my spell list all the time, especially since it's a bonus action now, which means you can throw that out and still do something with your action. Then you've got Dispel Magic, which removes, if they cast spells that debuff your allies, the only way to take those off is Dispel Magic. So I would keep that on my spell list all the time. Then you got Remove Curse, which removes curses, and it removes every curse on a target. So if they're cursed multiple times, this will remove all of them. It doesn't happen very often, but when when it happens, you got to have it. So remove curse is one of those ones where it's you might want to have it on your spell list, but you're probably only going to use it a few times in the whole campaign. Greater Restoration will remove the charm condition. It also removes Petrified. It's the only one that removes Petrified. It's the only one that removes the exhaustion condition, the ability score reduction, and hit point maximum reduction. It also removes 1 curse. And it doesn't do all of these things at the same time. You choose one of the effects, and it removes one of these things from the target. But it's the only one that removes Petrified, exhaustion, ability score reduction, and maximum hit points. So it's a good one to have. I would probably keep that on my spell list. You won't cast it every day, but boy, those things are so debilitating that when you need it, you want it probably right away. You don't want to wait for a long rest before you can use one of these things, remove one of these debuffs. Then you got the Heal spell, which also removes Blinded, Deafened, and Poisoned. Then there's Mass Heal, which removes the same, Blinded, Deafened, Poisoned. Most of the time, you're going to use those spells for the hit point healing. But it's nice that if they've got one of those conditions, it removes those as well. So keep that in mind. And then Power Word Heal is an interesting one where it removes an interesting cross section of conditions back to the charm condition, which we've been able to deal with since level 3. It's interesting that it removes that. It removes the frightened condition. It removes the paralyzed and poison conditions. It also removes the stun condition. It's the only spell in the game that removes the stun condition. Power Word Heal. So that's if you're The thing is, you don't run into creatures that stun very often. And when you do, though, you might want this. Now, it only removes it once because you've only got the 1/9 level spell slot. It'd be nice if it like gave you like a 1 minute immunity to these things. I think Power Word Heal at least needed that, but it doesn't. So you can remove it once. The other interesting thing is it kind of technically removes the prone condition, but what it does is the target has to use their reaction and then they can stand up from prone. So yeah, it removes it, but they have to use their reaction to trigger that. So this is a cool table, lays it out very visually to help you understand which of these spells are you going to need when. Um, Remove Curse is a strong candidate for just don't put it on your spell list and swap it in when you need it. Probably. It really depends on how much room you have on your spell list and how many roles you're trying to fill. If you're trying to be a good healer, support, and controller or blaster, you're going to have a lot of contention for your spell list. Okay, so you're going to have to cut some things out somewhere. And Remove Curse is probably Heroism is the first one I'd cut out if you have access to Calm Emotions. The second one I would cut out is Remove Curse for sure. And then you cannot prepare. I mean, you can prepare both Mass Heal and Power Word Heal, but I would not prepare both because you only have 1/9 level spell slot. I would probably just prepare one of them and call it good. And the party's going to have to deal the best they can with whichever one. If those Power Word Heal conditions come up, you just got to do the best you can with them. Stun usually never lasts indefinitely. Prone condition is easy. They just stand up on their turn using half their movement. So that a lot of those conditions that the Power to Heal cures, you have other ways to do it for the ones that are really important. So yeah, I probably wouldn't prepare that one if I had access to Mass Heal. All right, let's talk about the Cleric. And yes, the Cleric is probably the number one stereotypical healer. They're the first ones you think of with healing, and if somebody chooses Cleric, the first thing you think is they're a healer. So this one's especially important to say, if you're not going to play a healer as a Cleric, make sure you tell everybody. I'm not a healer, guys. Don't count on it. Right? Just because you chose this class does not mean you have to play this way. You do need to tell people. Cleric is awesome. It's one of my favorite classes, and I rank it in tier 2. In tier 1, they were an A ranked healer. In tier 2, I say that they're an S tier. This is the only S tier healer, and they are the best healer as a base class in the game. Okay, things change with subclasses. Okay, so I'm just talking about the base class. And there's two reasons for that. First is Channel Divinity. Now, their Channel Divinity gives them an option called Divine Spark, which is you can take a magic action, you present your holy symbol, and you heal one person within 30 feet of yourself. They regain 1d8 hit points plus your wisdom modifier. Okay, that's 2/3 of a cure wound spell. More importantly, it doesn't count as a spell. So you could do this Divine Spark to heal one target within 30 feet, and then also cast bonus action Healing Word to heal another person, right? So if you have two people down and they're the only ones who can do this at low level. If you've got two people down, you can bring them both back up in one turn because only one of these is a spell, right? When you have a non-spell way to heal, it gives you this kind of an option. And it upgrades at level 7, 13, and 18, which I hate that they chose those levels, guys. Why would you do this to us? Levels 5, 11, 17. Make it align with the cantrips so it's easier for us all to remember. Yeah. But anyway, it upgrades. So 2d8 plus your spellcasting modifier when you're level 7 now is the exact same as a Cure Wounds at level 1, but you can do it at 30 feet range, okay? And at level 18, it's a 48 plus your spellcasting modifier, almost equal to a free second level Cure Wounds at a 30-foot range. And that's strong. And you can do this, right? When you start at second level, when you get your Channel Divinity, you can do this 2 times, and you regain 1 per short rest, 3 times at level 6, and 4 times at level 18. So that's a lot of uses of this that you could be doing really to help your allies. And if you have an ally who's needs a lot of healing, and you can get a way to quicken a spell or bonus action a bigger spell, or even Healing Word upcast is a decent chunk of healing. You have the option to put both of these on one target to double heal them in one turn. Okay. So this is one part of it. This alone doesn't make them S tier, right? This makes them like A plus tier when they're tier 1, right? They have access to this in tier 1, and in tier 2, they get Divine Intervention, okay? And Divine Intervention lets you cast any cleric spell at 5th level or lower that isn't a reaction casting time, and you cast it just as an action. It's just part of the magic action you took to do Divine Intervention, and you don't need any material components, and you just cast the spell, and you don't need the spell prepared on your spell list. Okay, so that allows them to remove a lot of these spells that are super niche from your spell list, right? I would probably, and you can see I've done that at level 10 for the Cleric loadout, I would remove, because of this, remove Curse, Revivify, Greater Restoration, and Raise Dead. I would probably take those all off my prepared spell list and just rely on Divine Intervention to deal with that, right? Greater Restoration, you're not going to need every session. But when it does, you can just when you do need it, just Divine Intervention, you got it. Same thing with Raise Dead and Revivify. Same thing with Remove Curse, right? Remove Curse especially, right? That's a couple of times during a campaign. You just Divine Intervention. If you need it removed immediately, and if it doesn't need to be removed immediately, right, you can get one target immediately with Divine Intervention. You only do this once per long rest. And if you need to more remove curses, then you take a long rest, you prepare remove curse, swap something else out, and you remove the rest of the curses. Okay, so the cleric loadout levels 1 to 2. Yep, you're going to take cure wounds, healing word, and heroism. Levels 3 to 4. So I put the spell in red if you're removing it at that level. So we're going to remove heroism, and then we're going to add in green aid, calm emotions, lesser restoration, and prayer of healing. Okay. Levels 5 through 8, you're going to add aura of vitality, dispel magic, remove curse, and revivify. Level 9, we're going to add mass cure wounds, greater restoration, and raise dead. Level 10, we're going to remove the ones we just put on, most of them. Remove curse, revivify, greater restoration, and raise dead. Take them all off. Levels 11 to 12, you're going to add heal. Level 13 to 16, you're going to add conjure celestial. Absolutely, that spell is so strong. It's like a super blaster spell, no friendly fire, plus a super heal spell all in one. You're doing all of that in one turn, just like healing all of your team and damaging all of the allies, like all of the enemies. It's so strong. And then level 17 to 20, mass heal. That's what I would take, right? That's your cleric loadout. So between those two things, your channel divinity and divine inspiration, channel divinity allowing you to heal more targets more often, and channel divinity allowing you to prepare fewer healing spells that you have to gum up your prepared spell list with, like at least 4, maybe more of them, right? Calm emotions, you might even remove from your spell list because of this. So they have to have the fewest number of healing spells prepared on the spell list at the same time, which allows them to have more room for other things, control spells, blaster spells, which clerics have some great stuff there. Because of those things, cleric, once they get their channel divinity, I say is S tier. They are the S tier base class healer. Let's talk about the druid. Druids are also awesome healers. Druids are very flavorful. Another one of my favorite classes. That's kind of a funny thing to say. I think every class is my favorite class. Like I love every class except sorcerer. Yeah. So druid is an awesome class, really fun to play, and they are also good healers. So here's the druid loadout. Levels 1 to 2, cure wounds and healing word. Level 3 to 4, you're going to add aid, healing spirit, lesser restoration. Levels 5 through 8, you're going to remove healing spirit because you now have aura vitality, which is just a lot better for the spell slot economy. Now you might want to add healing spirit back in later, but I'll get to that. So levels 11 to 12, you're going to add, 9 to 10, you're going to add mass cure wounds, greater restoration, and reincarnate. Reincarnate's not as good as raise dead, but it's the only option the druids have. And if you got to raise somebody who died less than 10 days ago, you got to reincarnate them because that's all you got. And you're going to bring them back as a random race, a random species, right? Which for some people will be fun role play, a positive moment. And for a few who've like optimized around their species, that's going to be a big bummer, and they might elect to say, I don't want to be reincarnated at all. I'll just kill my character, let it stay dead, and I'll make a new character. And that's fine either way. It's most important that each player is playing the character they want to play and having fun, right? Okay, levels 11 to 12, you get the heal spell, so you definitely take that. Then 13 to 20, the only other heal spell you get now in the rest of tier 3 and all of tier 4 is regenerate, which is on my honorable mentions list. It will heal 633 hit points. So if you've got a barbarian or something like that who's like the tank and they've got 400 hit points, only heal 70. Okay, you're not going to heal them all the way back up with that. So regenerate is the way to go. Now it's going to take an hour to do that, and it takes a minute to cast a spell. So this is not going to be an in combat thing at all. 1 minute in combat is 10 rounds. So out of combat, your 400 and plus hit point barbarian tank has taken massive damage. They're down to single digit hit points, and you need to bring them back up. Then regenerate's the way to go. And you can see the Druid is missing some key condition removing spells, some key healing spells. They're missing Heroism, Calm Emotions, Prayer of Healing, Remove Curse, Raise Dead, Conjure Celestial, Mass Heal, and Power Word Heal. They don't have any options for their ninth level healing spells, or even seventh level. I mean, their seventh level healing spell option is Regenerate. That's it. So this is why I give the Druid an A, but not an S, like the Cleric. Like the Cleric is the best healer. They have access to all of the most important healing spells. They're just the best healer. But Druids are solid, right? I'd still say this is an A, right? Even in tier 4, you're still an A level healer. You've got full spell slots. You've got a lot of options for healing. You can do all the most important healing functions. You are going to be relying on Regenerate for those party members who just have a massive amount of hit points to heal. You can only do it, it's a 7th level spell slot. You never get more than one. So you're going to do that once, maybe your 7th and 8th level spell slot. You can do it twice. But they're still a good healer. All right, let's talk about the Bard now. The Bard is, again, I love playing Bards. Bards are fun. They're fantastic. They're great for role play. They're right out of the box. The base class is so good at so many different roles, or can be good at multiple roles, and healing is one of them. All right, so let's talk about the Bard loadout. And there's a big difference here for the Bard as well, which I will get to at level 10, right? But levels 1 to 2, you're going to take Cure Wounds, Healing Word, and Heroism. At levels 3 to 4, you're going to remove Heroism. You're going to add Aid, Calm Emotions, and Lesser Restoration. Levels 5 through 8, you're going to, 5 through 8, you're going to add Dispel Magic. Now, they don't have access to Revivify. So that's the biggest gap for the Bard from levels 5 through 9. No Revivify. So if you're the party healer and nobody else can do that, and somebody dies, you're in trouble. You can't bring them back. You either have to find somebody else to res them, but it's definitely not going to be happening in the middle of combat or anytime soon, in the middle of a dungeon, right? You're going to have to leave, go to town, find somebody to bring your ally back. Level 9, they're going to add Mass Cure Wounds, Greater Restoration, and Raise Dead, okay? Which is your first raise option. But, let me cover this first. So the important things you're missing as a Bard from levels 1 through 9 is Prayer of Healing, which is okay. You can live without that. Or Vitality, that one's super important, right? That's your big out of combat heal. That's 20d6 points of healing. Out of combat takes 1 minute to do that healing. And so that's 20d6 is 70 points of healing that you can just distribute through the party, okay? So that's your big out of combat heal for a lot of the career, right? And you don't have access to that. Remove Curse, you don't have access to that. You probably won't miss it by before level 10. Right? Curses just aren't very common. They don't happen very often. You'll probably be okay. Revivify, you might miss. That's going to be kind of a big deal. And at level 10, Bards have magical secrets. They can now choose any spell, both to replace one of their spells when they level up and when they gain a new spell, a new prepared spell. They can choose those spells from any spell from the Bard, Cleric, Druid, or Wizard spell list. And now the Bard can just be anything, right? They can choose every important healing spell. You should definitely get Conjure Celestial. That's a super awesome blast and heal. You can be a full blaster. You can be a full healer. You can be a full support. You can be a full controller. In fact, there's usually enough room on your spell list that you could be both like a A-ranked healer and an A-ranked controller, or an A-ranked blaster. You don't quite have enough room to be good at 3 of those. You could be like, an A rank at 3 of those. You might be like an A rank at 2 of those and like a B or a C at 1 or 2 more of those spellcasting roles, right? Bards are awesome because of this. So I'm not going to do the loadout for the rest of the time because the loadout's basically the same as a cleric. Like just start swapping in everything you needed. I would probably get Or Vitality first, and maybe Revivify, I think. Yeah, I'd probably get those two right at level 10. If you want to be if your main thing is to be the healer as the Bard, those are the 2 things I would get. Yeah. Or Vitality, Revivify, and then start swapping out other things for the whatever the cleric had, right? Level 13, get Conjure Celestial. You automatically at level 20 get Power Word Heal prepared. So this is the one example where maybe you also prepare Mass Heal and you automatically have Power Word Heal prepared, and you've got both of those options. The Bard can heal 2 targets with Power Word Heal, so that's just full max out 2 allies back to full hit points, plus remove a bunch of negative conditions. This might be the one case where I just don't even prepare Mass Heal, because Power Word Heal on 2 targets is probably going to cover you. In a lot of scenarios, would be better. So, like if you have 2 allies who have 450 hit points, which is possible at level 20, and you heal both of them full, that's 900 hit points of healing. That's better than Mass Heal. Okay. Some scenarios, a double Power Word Heal is going to be better. Yeah, so bards are great. All right, final considerations here. First up, the healer origin feat I think is super important if you're going to be the healer. Okay. Yes, battle medic is great. It allows you to quickly out of combat expend party members' hit point dice to heal them. Um, and if you need that healing and you don't have time for a full short rest, that's great, right? It's not. And a lot of times it'll cover the need for if you don't have aura of vitality, right? So the bard can take this. Sorry, the yeah bard who doesn't have aura vitality, you can take this and then in 1 minute or 2 minutes heal the whole party. Now you can only do that as many times as they have um, hit point dice left, so you can't keep doing this continuously. Eventually they run out of hit point dice, but this will make up for like one or two uses of aura vitality. Now level 10 you don't need that anymore, you're going to have aura vitality, but this is still good to have as well. This also gives you a way to heal somebody with your action like the cleric can do. It doesn't heal as much as their channel divinity, but it is a way to heal as an action, one target, and then bonus action heal somebody else. So that's good. But the most important part of this as the healer is the healing rerolls. Okay, that one on a die is going to come up often, especially with like healing word, right? And if you're going to upcast healing word, you're going to be rolling into third level. At third level, it's 6d4. You're, I think, virtually not. I mean, statistically, it's not guaranteed, but it's very, very likely you're going to roll at least one of those as a one, and the reroll is going to increase that healing. But pretty often you're going to roll ones on even cure wounds and other things, right? Mass cure wounds. So being able to reroll those ones is going to feel great. Now, if you're a life cleric, you maybe don't want this because at some point you get the ability where you just instead of rolling the dice for healing, you just get the max healing, and you also have your channel divinity, so you can already do what battle medic does. You already have aura vitality, and you don't need the rerolls because you don't roll anymore. You just max it out. So the life cleric is maybe the one time you don't take the healer feat. Then a few notes here. First up, make sure you have something valuable and fun to do when healing isn't needed, because there's always going to be times when healing isn't needed. On the first round of combat, nobody should need healing unless they just got wrecked in the first round before it's your turn, right? But at the start of combat, nobody should need a healing spell because you weren't in combat previously, and if they needed healing, you should have done that before combat started, right? So make sure you can do other things that are going to be fun, right? Either being one of the other roles like a frontliner or a tank. Clerics make good frontliners and tanks. Some way to do damage as a blaster, have control spells, have support spells. Make sure you always have options to do something fun because healing is not always needed. In fact, I would say 50% of the time, healing isn't needed in combat, like at least 50%. Make sure you've got something else that's a good option to do that's going to be valuable, a valuable contribution to the party, which means you're going to have fun doing it, right? If you do a contribution that isn't valuable, that's not going to be fun. Second, if the party has a source of renewable temporary hit points and a lot of them, they won't need as much healing. And whether that's you or somebody else, if you've got somebody in the party who's just handing out lots of temporary hit points, they're going to need a lot less healing. So keep that in mind when you're considering your party composition before session 0 and you're planning your role, right? If you've got somebody in the party who can do that, then you might want to make sure even more so that you've diversified into another role. All right, and when should you heal? Um, So, for example, healing somebody who's only lost a few hit points and your healing spell restores them would have healed them more than they have hit point damage that they've taken. You just wasted some of that resource, right? Also, if you wait too long and 3 or 4 party members are at single digit hit points and and they're going to 0, or multiple go to 0 at the same time, you're gonna have a hard time bringing them back up enough that they don't just keep going down every round. Okay, and yes, you can with 1 point of healing bring them right back, um, but they're still going to be losing out on a lot of things. They could still be killed easily, right? 2 melee attacks could kill them before you can heal them when they're at 0 hit points. Because if you are adjacent, well, 2 any attacks, if you're adjacent, if the enemy is adjacent to a character who's unconscious and at 0 hit points, then they have advantage to attack them. And if they hit, it's automatically a crit. And when you crit at 0 hit points, or get crit at 0 hit points, it's an automatic 2 death save fails instead of 1 for just taking damage. So they only have to hit you twice to just kill you if you're at 0 hit points. All right. So, in 2014, it was very popular to say just wait until somebody like drops to 0 hit points and then just bring them back, and they just kind of like yo-yo, which I never liked and I don't recommend. And that's even worse now. right? The amount of healing you can heal with heal spells has increased. There's also the fact that monsters do a lot more damage than they used to in 2014. So the chances that they could kill you and bring you down and bring down more party members faster than you can heal is a possibility. And there's still the rule of massive damage, right? If you're at 0 hit points and you take enough damage to be equal to your maximum hit points, then you don't get a death save fail, you just die, right? If you have 100 hit points is your maximum, but you're at 0, and then you take 100 hit points of damage while you're at 0, just dead. You're just dead. Now, how likely is it you're going to take 100 hit points of damage in one instance of damage? Not very often, even at high levels, right? Not very often, but at low levels, definitely possible, right? You've got 12 hit points maximum. You're currently at 6. If you just take 18 points of damage in one hit, which is possible in tier 1, you not only drop to 0, you just die immediately, right? If the remaining damage after you hit 0 would take you to if the remaining damage, this is the way they phrase it, if the remaining damage that you take while you're at 0 is equal to your maximum hit points, you just die. So in that case, if you would have, another way to think about it is if you would have gone negative 12 and your maximum hit points is 12, then you just die. No death saves, just dead. So it is far more beneficial, and I would always recommend this anyway, but far more beneficial in 2024 to make sure you're not allowing your allies to drop to 0 hit points. So when should you start healing? Probably around the time they're bloodied. That's a good time to be like, well, we're taking enough damage that I should keep these people up. That also gives you a nice indicator of, you get an indication of how dangerous this group of enemies is, because like Aura of Vitality is only a 3rd level spell and is a very efficient heal spell. It's 70 points of healing for a 3rd level spell. It takes a minute. And so if you don't have to heal in the middle of combat and you can just wait till after combat, you should just cast Aura of Vitality and cast it multiple times if you need to just bring everybody back up to max. So if you're going to end the fight, if your whole party ends the fight with nobody bloodied, then any healing you did there was less efficient than just casting Aura of Vitality after the fight, right? That's when you want to wait till just after the fight. But if your party started the fight at full hit points and there's several of them have dropped to bloodied before the fight's over and you got a ways to go, that's telling you that they're doing enough damage that you're at risk. You should use a less efficient form of healing, like Cure Wounds or the heal spell or whatever you got, to start healing your party to keep them up, because they might die, right? And you don't want to wait for out of combat to do the more efficient healing. Okay, so right around bloodied, I'd start healing. And then the final thing to keep in mind is the Meta Magic Extend spell option increases the duration of any spell. It doubles it, right? And Aura Vitality, really, it gets most of its healing from the duration. So if you double the duration of Aura Vitality from 1 minute to 2 minutes, you're now talking 40 D6 points of healing, which is 140 points of healing that you could heal with that one spell out of combat. I mean, it's 2 minutes, right? You can cast it in combat, and they made it better, so you might want to cast it in combat. But most of the healing is over time, so most of the healing would be after the combat ends. So if you can get Meta Magic Extend spell, that is a great way to really increase the efficiency of that spell, Aura Vitality. Really, really good. I mean, you can put it on Regenerate as well, and then it will regenerate, will last 2 hours and restore 1,200 hit points. But in the middle of combat, 1 hit point per round is not going to make a big difference. Now, they will full heal after every combat, in 10 minutes or whatever it is. But yeah, that's a great way to make Regenerate more valuable too. 2 hours of just your tank just continually re-healing after every combat without you doing anything else. Not a bad way to go. Yeah, and that's the final consideration. So thanks for watching. I was excited about this role. I hope this was valuable for you, and I hope it helps you think, I don't know, differently or more critically about how you're playing the healer role and how you're going to contribute to the party and be a big benefit to the party as the healer. I think the healer role is a ton of fun. I love playing it. I know not everybody does, but I love it, and I know a lot of people do, and it's just fine if you do or don't like it, right? If you don't like it, don't play it. If you do like it, play it. It's great. It's a lot of fun. And every party benefits from having a healer. So it's a great way to go. Yeah, thanks for watching. Remember to be cool. When you play D&D, be cool to DM, be cool to the other players, because these people are your friends and you're playing a game. Or they could become your friends, right? And everybody could use more friends. So remember to always be cool, and I'll catch you next time.